O'clock into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. Our audience is on different platforms this morning, YouTube and Facebook, streaming live, and on KTN, as well as radio in Kenya and indeed around the world. Karibuni sana. And we continue with our conversations this morning. The Deputy Governor of Murang'a County is Stephen Mumania, and he is in the hot seat this morning. DG, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes.
You've told us that every now and again you watch the show.
Yes.
And it's good to have you in the seat today. We'll be looking at issues of the future of leadership in this country and youth development. Big ticket items.
Yes.
And there's a program actually that's working with young people, youth development, and trying to make sure that the gap that has been created by unemployment and lack of skills training is actually reduced. And that's in the Tujiajiri program by the KCB Foundation. I want to tell you a little bit about that and what exactly they are doing in Kenya.
So, DG, as we talk about matters to do with the youth, I'll just ask you a question. How many young people do you think enter the labor market annually?
In my estimate, it would be in the 100,000.
Actually,
because, yeah.
100,000. You're
Yes,
not far from that number,
Yeah,
but it is actually over 1 million annually who get into the labor market. And with this problem being realized not only by government, also private sector is seeing the problem that does exist here, and they're trying to offering solutions. So KCB Group, through its foundation, the KCB Foundation to Jejuri program, is here to give solutions. And as we talk about solutions, let me just talk about numbers, cities. You know, how many people they've trained so far, because it's an exercise that has been ongoing for years now.
You know, numbers tell a very good story because numbers, as they say, don't lie.
Yes.
And it's something one can cross-check and determine. So, Dennis,
Yes.
hit us with the number.
So the numbers now here is since the inception, the KCB to Jejuri program has created 150,555 jobs, trained 35,195 youth, incubated 10,954 youth, and disbursed 267 million shillings loans to support their enterprises, and also issued 2,225 startup toolkits for trade, and trained 6,535 businesses on financial planning. These are the numbers, and as City says, numbers do not lie. These are Kenyans who've been impacted by this initiative by KCB, and it is also just not giving you the money. It's not just giving you the skill, not just training you, but giving you the tool. You are a plumber, you are an electrician. Chukua a screwdriver and shika wire pale, and make sure that that light is there in that house. City.
Yes.
City is laughing.
Well, listen to what Dennis is saying, shika wire. Stima pia inaweza shika wewe.
It doesn't shika wewe, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and you see now, when you talk about shika wire, they actually take you to school.
Yeah.
They've partnered even with the TVETs, so that if you are interested in wiring, you're taken through that course, and they also go forward to ensure that you have internship, that they mentor you after all that. And all this information, you can get it at kcbgroup.com/foundation.
Yes.
Fantastic. There are great things happening, and we're getting into a lot of those conversations this morning with you. But before that, we're going to give you the tea.
Yes.
In this case, it's our way of a cup of tea.
Yes.
CT goes to a different African country every week and has proverbs, 5 proverbs from that country. He's in a very interesting country this week, and I'll let him welcome you with that.
Yes, this particular country has, the second highest mountain peak in Africa. That is this country.
Yes.
Do you want to guess, or do you want me to give you another hint?
Another hint.
All right. This country is known for its long and middle distance runners who are champions on the planet.
Yes. It's this country.
What do you think this country? Which country do you think this is?
This is the Kenya.
You clearly did not skip geography.
Yes, I am a fan of geography. Yes.
And it shows.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Well, I thought, for a moment I was just thinking of geography. I completely forgot the problem. In fact, when you look at me, I was wondering, why are you looking at me? Fanikio huzaa fanikio.
Fanikio huzaa fanikio.
Yes. That is a proverb. Would like to tell us what you think the meaning is, and also how you think this proverb can be applied.
From where I sit, I think I can just compare it that rain pours heavily in the oceans. That good deeds begets good deeds. Worse deeds begets worse deeds. Whatever goes around comes around.
Yes. You have put it simply and to the point, and yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. When we look at things that could go simply and to the point, and we look at youth leadership and what space has been created for it in the country currently, it becomes a bit difficult. And just by way of introduction, DG,
Yes.
when we look at the county, you obviously working alongside Governor Kangata, and we say looking at the county and then looking at a country as a whole, what spaces have been provided for younger leadership and its development coming into the county level, the national level? Let's look at the protest that took place in June 2024. It would have birthed an opportunity for younger demographic to be able to say, here we are and we want to take control. We want to do an overview first before we get into some of the nitty-gritty and say, is there really space that has been created for younger leaders in the country, or are we dealing with the dinosaur, what I like to call the dinosaur effect, whereby the people who ruled 20 years ago are still the people, and I use rule deliberately, are still those who are ruling today. 30 years ago, still the same people in the picture.
Yes.
Is there room that has been created for younger leadership to come in and start to take on particular roles?
Thank you very much, and good morning to all our listeners across the country. And for me, I would start from a question of context. Context of youth leadership and the nation that we have in, and the kind of nation that I have seen myself and what I have experienced. And I would like to begin with, allow me just to begin with a small story. A context in history. In 1917, 1817.
Okay, even further. Okay.
In 1817, when when the British were going out and colonizing the world, they sent a general in the Middle East called Sir Frederick Stanley. He was tasked to take Baghdad. And in his quest, he went and found some farmers who had these herds of goats along the desert. They were farming, and he was tasked. His job was to ensure that he takes Baghdad, and he was tasked to ensure that he does it more efficiently. So when he encountered this farmer, by then a herd of goats would have gone for 2 shillings. In that context, so he offered the farmer 1 shilling for half the herd, and for him to slaughter his dog. Remember, the dog is a very important part of a herd, because it's the one that protects the herd. It's the one that signals danger to the herd, and it is the one that usually protects the herd from any wolves or any other animal that might attack the herd. And then, so the farmer accepted the 1 shilling, and then to give out the half of the herd and also kill the dog. Then the general asked the farmer, "Can I add you another 1 shilling for you to skin the dog and the rest of the herd?" So the farmer said yes. He gave him another shilling. Then he also asked the farmer, "Can I add you another shilling for you to cut up the dog into very small pieces?" And then he accepted. But he also told the general, "If you add me 1 more shilling, I'm going to eat the dog." The story of Sir Frederick Henry is an issue, and so Sir Frederick Henry told all his men, this is not about the herd, and it is not about the dog. It's about getting to understand the morals of this country, of these countrymen. So whenever you are dealing with anybody from Baghdad, do not accept that they cannot be bought, do not accept that they have any moral standings because they can sell out anything and anyone for the purpose of their own personal gain.
I'm seeing you drawing direct parallels between the Baghdad story and what is happening in Kenya today. Or am I wrong?
That's what I wanted to bring into context with whatever is happening on issues of youth leadership and the future of our development. Because when you look at our country and then you look at the soul of this nation, it is what now you are seeing about the issues of youth uprising across the nation. Because they can clearly see something is not right. We were sold out by people without morals. We have created systems that are not morally upright. And so, even the most genuine jobs that the young people might get, they don't get them. Even the most basic economic uplifting that they might want to uptake, it's not there. Because we are grabbing everything and we have sold out everyone for the purpose of lining our own pockets. And this is the soul of the country that I see the young people fighting for as we speak. The rule of law, democracy, and their space to be heard and to self-determine in this country.
The example you've given is a beautiful one. You're actually 1 century away. It was actually
1917.
Yes. So Frederick Maud, and it was 11th March 1917, and the taking of Baghdad.
Yes.
What is significant in this story that the DG has told us is, to begin with, Baghdad was part of the Ottoman Empire.
Yes.
And the Ottoman Empire, Europe right up to it was huge. Actually, Yugoslavia, all those are part of the Ottoman Empire.
Those are the biggest empires.
It was huge, one of the biggest empires ever. Now, the taking of Baghdad strategically was in such a way that they actually met no resistance. They more or less just walked in.
Yes.
But symbolically, it marked the end of the Ottoman Empire. Yes. Symbolically, okay? Because this was an important part of that particular empire. So, if I'm to take symbolically what you're saying that when you look at those who have been in power, the people who have, since independence, been those who have been mandated and who have taken up leadership roles, that somewhere along the line, the process of what we can refer to as their leadership has fallen short of what it should actually have done and should be doing even right now.
It's true, because when you look around the world, and when we gain independence, and there are these parallels that are drawn across the world, we were in the same economic situations as so many middle-income countries in Southeast Asia. But now they have surpassed us to such extent that we can only admire. But for us, we seem to only have regressed. We have taken some of the most basic economic model, and giving an example, for example, our coffee industry, which was one of the largest economic earners in central region. Right now, it's being surpassed by all other because we collapsed it due to mismanagement and our national policies and all that. When you look at our ability to convert the talent and the innovation of young Kenyans towards job creations, towards economic development. Now we are just exporting labor and exporting that knowledge across the world, but it is not getting done here. And this is the situation from where I sit in terms of youth leadership, that whatever we are seeing across the country and young people coming up and saying that we are no longer going to accept this, it's because they are seeing that their future is in danger.
Which begs the question, it is a matter of, for a very long time, the leadership, as has been alluded by Ndu earlier, is that the old folk have ring-fenced the leadership mantra in this country such that it's just them. Even as we sit right now, the handshakes that are happening left, right, and center, it is no longer that conversation. Because remember, 2022, it was dynasty versus hustler. Now the conversation has turned to be just about dynasties and dynasties, if I would put it that way. Which means...
It still is. In fact, if you ask me, may I interrupt you, please?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'll finish.
I think what the analogy you've just given actually defines the very thing that was part of the platform on which this government campaigned on. Why am I'm saying this? When dynasties bunch together, the hustlers are still where they were.
Yes.
So they've actually defined the dynasties for us even better than what we knew before.
Yes.
Because the hustlers remain at the constant. They haven't moved. So now it's genuinely hustler versus dynasty. Because we can actually see who the dynasties actually are. Yes.
Yeah. And as I finish, yeah. So now here is these two formations that have been put into place, and the young people are saying we deserve a seat at the table, and this is how we will get there. But the question is, how do the young people get there?
But it goes back towards the history of our political cycles and how we have fashioned our political. How do we get people elected into political seats? Each and every time you look at the history of how people have been elected, electoral seats have become more expensive year by year, election after election. And because how can young people get into positions where they cannot afford? Yeah, because look at if, for example, let me give an example with the constituencies that I know somewhere there in Moranga. The minimum campaign funds that you need for a single constituency seat is maybe 50 million. Constituency seat.
Okay, since we discussed MCA?
MCA, you need MCA. It's around 15 thereabouts.
Million.
Yes. So the question is that when can young people get there when they are jobless, when they have no opportunities, and how do we structure campaign financing in this country? What are the laws that have been put in place?
Are you asking the right question, Mheshimiwa?
The question has come has come in that way because from where I sit, you cannot, if you have no resources to get there, you are going to have a very good platform, but the people with the monies are still going to have a large say into who is going to be elected.
Okay.
And this is the soul of the country in leadership.
I see what you're saying. I actually do see what you're saying.
So if we have put money into how we elect people, then we cannot expect less from the people who have been elected because they use this similar money. Where is this money going to get from?
Okay, so the question is that should we be asking how young people or how I don't want to say young people. I also about alternate leadership.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If alternate leaders were to get into the system, what we're asking is how do they get the money?
Yes.
But in my mind, the question is how do alternate leaders topple this system, which is already so toxic that doesn't allow alternate leaders to get in? And I have to go back to history. I'm going to go to the history of Africa. When we look at different leaders and what they did, look at Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah got into leadership when he was 33.
Yes.
Sankara was 33. Nkrumah was 21. Nelson Mandela was 24. So if we're talking about demographic of age, the people who stand out to us as democratically driven leaders, they started when they were young.
Yes.
But this is the thing for me. They didn't ask permission.
They did not.
Yes.
They did not seek permission from the would-be leaders at that time to say, can we please have a seat at the table? Would you please endorse me? Would you lend me 100 million shillings so that I can enter into this contest? No. They saw the thing, they realized what needed to be done, and they said, we're going to topple this system which demands you bring that money. So do we have that verve? Is that vim there right now for younger leaders to say, you know what, we're not asking your permission. We see the problem, we want to get rid of it, and this is what we are demanding ought to be done. Do we have that?
I think we are in the cusp of doing that. Because from what I look, what the young people are doing in the conversations that they are having right now, they are devoid of, they are on very specific issues. They are devoid of noises. And I'm saying that because the young people that are in my position as a young person, I've seen people contact me directly via X, via Facebook. They call me directly. And the question they are asking deliberately on questions of development and what we have done with the very small budget that I have in Moranga. They are asking about very deliberate, what have you spent on this and what have you done on this? Right. So they are genuinely concerned about the development of this country and how it's being run. They are very keen on what we are doing and our rationale in doing that. So what I am asking right now is that with this motion with this emotion that is around the country, about the young people coming out and speaking their minds, critiquing the government, then we need to translate this into a model in which we can raise young leaders into positions. And by doing so, the young people need to register as voters, come out to vote, and say, we have seen what you have been doing across this country. We have seen you in the last administration. We have seen you in this administration. You cannot do this. So we are raising up leaders. In this context, we are going to vote for them, regardless of whether they have money or not, because we have assessed that they can be able to do this.
How do you get young people to actually register? How do you get them to ensure they have IDs? What's the plan? What's the game plan? What is it? Because we speak of a youth bulge, but in the absence of what you've just mentioned, the registration, that youth bulge just becomes the topic of discussion.
And how also do we make sure that even when they get to register, that exercise happens? Because then again, the person who seems like they're blocking even the registration exercise to happen
because they
don't have IDs.
This is the question that keep arising again and again.
Yes.
And I do not want to comment more about the activities of the central government in the sense that I have no direct control of some of those activities. But the issue, for example, of IEBC is one of those issues that blocks that process. And this is why you are seeing a lot of upheaval and activism from the young people, because they understand that if you block this one institution from doing and activating its mandate, then the young people that we expect to come out in 2027 and have their say at the ballot democratically so that we can still maintain a stable and a developing country, then they do not have, in legal sense, they do not have the opportunity to do that.
Let me ask a different question. Of all the young people who have IDs, are they all registered voters?
No.
Okay, can we start with those who have IDs and who have been registered? How do we get them to register? And the question is, are we saying that you cannot register with the IBC simply because they don't have a commission?
You can't right now. Because the registration exercise at IEBC is done by the Secretariat, not the commissioners.
Yes.
So the question then now comes to, if the young people want to change the country, they want to take this leadership, because leadership is not given, it is taken.
Yes.
How then do we push that conversation and the young people to come up, go register and make these changes that you want? Like we've said, at 21, at 33, it can be done. The young people right now in Kenya, the majority, can do it.
Yes. And I think that's the part that we need to translate the conversation that we are doing, that we are having towards those actions. They need to be deliberate actions. Register as voters. Educate more young people towards leadership positions. Educate more young people towards their civic duties so that they can be able to get into those positions. Let them understand that registration is a right. To register as a voter is a right in this country, in a democratic country. So that's what we need to happen. And from where I sit, they also need to participate actively in public participation of government policy.
Okay. I'm going to ask us to take a break because I want you to come back after that and tell us how. Because we know what public participation looks like. We know what it is supposed to be.
Yes.
But we're going to take that and play it against actually what actually happens. So I want you to tell us what that looks like when we talk about participate in these things that come about. How then does that actually play out? We're talking this morning with the Deputy Governor of Murang'a County, and we're looking at the youth and inclusion and also development. How is that actually supposed to start to play out in the country? And as we go to that break, let me tell you that Cradle is doing something fantastic. Cradle, if you're wondering, it's the largest study abroad platform, and it uses cutting-edge technology to match students and their career and education goals to 600 universities in 45 global destinations. So this January, the first of its kind ever, Study Abroad annual conference is taking place in Nairobi on the 18th of January and the 27th of January in Eldoret at the Eka Hotel. So here in Parklands at the Gallant Mall in Nairobi, Eka Hotel in Eldoret. And it's the first Study Abroad conference. It's going to bring top experts from Cradle and international universities across the world. It's a conference packed with the most knowledge you will ever get in one place and at one time to make your best study abroad experience and decisions. And you can do that as you register on www.cradle.com, and you also have an opportunity to call on 0799 000 444. Remember, it's invite only. How'd you get invited? You register on the website and come and attend, where you will find top universities and their representatives giving you the experience that you need to make a decision for your education future.
Room, the only way to start your day.
People come to me and they say they get discomfort when they have ice cream. Can you imagine that? Avoiding having cold ice cream. Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protections against sensitivity. And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
We value your feedback and welcome your comments, queries, and complaints regarding our content. You can get in touch with us via SMS on 22151, call 0719012450, or email feedback@standardmedia.co.ke. Our PO Box number is 30080-00100, Nairobi, or deliver it to our offices at Standard Group Center, Mombasa Road, Nairobi.
Dreaming of shopping online from the biggest stores in the US and Europe? Now, it's easier than ever to get those items delivered to Kenya. Shop your favorite brands on websites like Amazon, eBay, and Zara. Then sit back and relax. We'll deliver right to your doorstep in Kenya. Rapid Courier has partnered with Standard Courier to enable you to shop globally and get your purchases delivered locally anywhere in Kenya. Our fast and reliable delivery service ensures your items arrive safely right to your door. Sign up today and start shopping online from the US and Europe with delivery to Kenya made easy. Shop global, delivered to Kenya. Sign up today on rapidgroup.com and start shopping globally.
I just want to know what really happened to Mommy, as well as clearing all of their names.
This is the start of their downfall. I've planned this for so long.
Their family ruined our lives anyway.
What matters is getting revenge.
It looks like I got it.
Our names stained with lies and deceit.
It's not enough for them to simply die after all the pain and suffering they put us through.
You see, we're kind to those who deserve it. But if anyone tries to mess with us, we turn into monsters.
You think you can handle it? I can. No, I will. I'll do whatever it takes. They'll suffer so much that they themselves will wish they were dead.
Dirty linen.
DG, is that youth, young people, those who want alternate offers for leadership should attend these public participation. And I'm going to ask you that one of the things that often comes out is that public participation was called for, it was attended. There was one very interesting one that happened the other day that we didn't know anything about.
Yep.
But it seems as though it's a tick-the-box exercise in this country when you talk about public participation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if we're saying it's one of the avenues through which alternate leaders then can either be found, that they can be nurtured, how then do we take something that seems to be really so confusing and use it as an avenue to ensure that alternate leadership in the young people takes place in Kenya?
I think the question of nurturing and bringing up youth leadership also comes towards our civic duty as citizens. And this is the question that, because remember, public participation happens when the people are also willing to participate in the public participation. When you have a policy that you want to pass, when you have a development agenda that you need to communicate, then you need an active public participation. Allow me to give an example of how we have done it in Moranga. Because I can only comment on what I have done it. It's not 100%, but I can give an example of what we have done. When we were developing our school feeding program for our ECD, with our 700 ECD ECD centers in Murang'a. We initially thought the idea of a school feeding program is quite expensive and it has so many handles. So we needed to understand how do we do this. So our initial round of public participation was get to the parents, get to the teachers, understand what they think about this. Then the second part was which was from my perspective was one of the best on public participation is on piloting. We selected schools in every ward maybe 1 or 2 schools that we did a piloting of this program on to understand what are the challenges that we might encounter while still doing public participation with the parents, with the teachers, and even with the kids. Once we were able to do all that together, then we were able to roll out the entire program towards towards all 700 ECD centers. Right now, it's on its second year, and it's serving 42,000 children across Murang'a County. However, it is not the school feeding program in the traditional sense where you have kitchens in every school.
Yes.
You have centralized kitchen, 2 in every ward that cook, and then we transport the uji towards all schools within the ward. That issue of public participation was very informative because it was not based on what we thought we should be able to do or based on our own knowledge, but it was rather the knowledge that was gathered from the people on how to run the program that we were able to do that. So part of the inclusion that we were able to do is that we selected now parents themselves in every school had now a voice in how their children were being fed. So they selected one of their parents, a volunteer, who would become, we call them now Uji champions.
Okay.
Their job is to ensure that every morning they get to the school, they open the seals of the Uji, and they serve that Uji, and then they go home.
And this Uji is coming directly from county provision?
Yes, this is what we are paying for as a county. The parent pays nothing.
Okay.
This is the county that pays. So when a program like this that costs the county 120 million annually, to be able to provide this school feeding program, then it's well then every child in Murang'a and every parent who takes their children in ECD in Murang'a is actively involved in this, because every year they have to select one of their representatives who is a volunteer to participate in the program. They are also the ones who go through the trainings so that they also understand how we prepare the Uji and how we want to improve this program. Currently, we are in the phase where we saw how well it was working, and now we are trying to pilot with now the primary school feeding program with now the entire all primary schools. But now we are piloting it in 55 primary schools so that we see now how it does, and then we move forward. From where I sit, public participation, whether it's on what we are seeing in SHA, what we are seeing in all the other things, what we are seeing in all other things across the country, public participation should be practical. It shouldn't be a theoretical issue where people give ideas on what they think without practicability, but we should be able to test out. And this is the case for devolution. If we have counties that are semi-autonomous from the national government, then why not test out this policy? Let's say you pick 3 counties, test out a policy, you do active public participation, and then roll out when you have sorted out all these nitty-gritties. Right now, we are facing an issue with SHA and SHIF across the country. The issues that we are facing were issues, I'm going to give 2 key problems that I have identified. Number 1 is what we are calling the mean testing model on how much you are supposed to pay. You understand that they said that they piloted the mean testing program, and they say that the lower cadre of people who are supposed to pay the 300 shillings are supposed to be the majority. But what happened when we rolled out this program in the county of Murang'a, and we did this? We found out that on average, the minimum that a person can pay is 600 shillings. Once you have done mean testing, what are these tools that they have done? They have used issues, for example, whether you live in a stone house, whether you have electricity connected, whether you have piped water. They are saying that those are indicators of wealth, whether you have a cow, whether you have some tea bushes, but go into the villages. A person who have a cow in the village has a cow that only produces 5 liters. It's not economically viable. You look at a person, you are saying that he lives in a stone house. The stone house that you're talking about is the one that have been engaged, that the children or even the grandchildren have come around, they have changad, and they have built that grandmama a house. And then you're telling the grandmother to pay 800 shillings. There is a grandmother who came crying into our offices because the SHA mean testing has been told to pay 2,000 shillings. She cannot afford the 2,000 shillings. And this is the question that we ask: how do we do this public participation, and how do we test these things out? Because if it's a matter of what I think is about a means to wealth, this country has very diverse people. You go to central Kenya and you go to the northeastern region. The same indicators cannot apply. Because a cow that is in Murang'a that is producing 5 liters is not economically viable. But then you go to another place, the same cow is economically viable because it's a meat cow. These are so many different things. And so when you look at how then we are governing this country based on our own mind, nobody should have the monopoly of knowledge in this country when it comes to leadership.
Especially so now we're talking about monopoly of knowledge in relation to age.
Yes.
Okay.
Even in relations to execution.
Right.
Because if I have an idea, for example, on how to be able to, yes, I have an idea. And in our mind, let me give you an example with Murang'a. In our minds, when it comes to healthcare, our idea was that we need to be able to have universal coverage for all indigents. But we do not have an idea of how to be able to do that. And so when we did public participation, we engaged so many people, and then we understood that for you to be able to bring people into universal health coverage, you need to do 3 things. Number 1, you have to provide access. Number 2, you need proximity. And number 3, you need affordability. Those 3 things are key indicators in health. So in affordability, we came up with Kangata Care, which ensures that anybody now those grandmamas who are of age to the people, Murang'a is an aging population.
Is it?
Yeah, Murang'a is an aging population.
You don't have young people?
We have young people, but Murang'a, when it comes to health, the bulk of the people who consume health are the age.
Which means you have people who've lived long.
Yes. Which also means that we have young people coming from Murang'a to Nairobi and Kiambu. Because once they come to universities in JKUAT, in KU, they don't go back.
Do you think that there is, even as we look at this, because there is a cry, and one of the things that we did see, because let's talk about things that actually are happening when it comes to youth leadership in the country. And we're going to keep using the protests that happened in June last year as a point of reference for this. Because for the first time in a very long time, we then did see directly that there were people who are saying, we need a tweak in the leadership. Not even just a tweak. Dismantle the whole thing and let's start again.
Fresh, yeah.
And then there were folks you would see distinct who could say, okay, let us see if we can rally behind this person. Let us see if this person can represent our needs, our desires. Unfortunately, along the line, we saw some of those individuals drop off. For whatever the case may be, that they went to seek counsel from, again, the older participants in this thing, or that they felt that they could have been manipulated because they saw that there was some kind of gathering that had formed behind them that was quite significant. Do you think it is necessary for a young person today, alternate youth leadership today, to go back to the uncle, I will just call them the uncles of the day, to say, guide me or lead me? Or should you just take the passion raw as you have it and say, I'm the option for tomorrow?
There is, when we have conversation with my governor, he likes to remind me that when you see young people agitated, it's when you know there is a problem in the country. Because young people are very sensitive on issues of injustice. they are very sensitive on issues of injustice because their minds are not formed up by large, so many years of experience and being compounded. So they are very attuned to injustice. So when you look at what has been happening from last year's issue of protest for the young people, you look at the pain. For me, I'm looking at the pain of young people across the country who are looking at that. However, I also want to look at the mind of a politician, however young or old. The mind of a politician still has to look at who can get me elected, which bridges can I build, and how can I get there.
Is it necessary? Today in Kenya,
yes,
when we're talking about there could be 1,000, maybe more. In fact, there probably are 100,000 people right now who are younger. I'm just using that particular demographic as a way of example. It could be women, it could be young men, it could be university educated or not, skilled in business, whatever the case may be, that will put themselves up for leadership in this country because the alternate, it doesn't matter if you have a perfect system, whatever that would look like, the need for alternate leadership is always there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And in this case, in Kenya, it's unique because we're talking about younger leadership. Do you think it's necessary to go back to the folks who've been there for the last 30 years and say, lead me, guide me? Is it necessary? Or can you just pick up your thing and say, let's go?
To some extent, yes or no. The reason why I'm saying that, yes, because in some cases, look at the structure of government, and when we put people in government, a very small people who lead policy are also backed up by people who have existed into the system. And look at any structure, whether you are looking at the presidency, whether you are looking at the ministries, whether you are looking at county government.
Okay.
Public servants form a bulk of what government is ought to be. And so many of the institutions across the country that govern this country, in most cases, do not defer to elected leaders. They do so under their own mandate. So for you to effectively lead and have a change, you need to build those bridges. In another extent, no, you do not need those systems because you also need to come up with ideas on how to revitalize this public service.
Okay.
So that it provides service and not give orders.
There is, as we have this discussion, I like this discussion very much. It's making sense and it's making me feel that there's still a lot of hope in the country. Then my mind suddenly grinds to a halt when I think of just the influence that money has in our politics.
Yeah.
How is it possible to get our young citizens to actually understand that the centrality of money in our politics is probably the bane of our existence? We have the problems we have because of that. And that the move away from it and the move towards issue-based politics, literally, is what will bring about these changes we talk about. Because so long as money is central, it doesn't matter who you elect, that problem will not go away.
You see, it's the same when I was coming up as in elections in 2022. I went around not only the county but also around the country. And to some extent, I thought that maybe I wouldn't make it into the position because of the level of, let me call it extortionism that we have in our country. And this, I'm putting it in quotes.
And in our politics.
The extortion, whether from people in politics, the leaders of political parties, for you to get this, you need to give this.
Yes.
Certificates are being sold for
for a premium.
For a premium. You want to be a part of this party, you sell it. Secondly, go to the election structures. The buying out of POs as our polling officers.
Yes.
Whether in during the nominations or even elections. Towards now, even the people who are campaigning for you, they also still need something. And even the general mwananchi, what they need, and they're asking for it. Whether you have a very clear message or not, they still ask for that. They still ask for money. You cannot speak us until you
give us money.
You give us this. You cannot, whether it's young people or not. That mentality hasn't changed. That mentality hasn't changed. Whether you are even after the demonstrations that have been, you still meet young people across and they still tell you, mheshimiwa, tupe kitu ndio tuweze kukusukuma mbele. And this has been the question, the question about how and the place that we have put money across, whether it's even in our small, and you know this even when you go interact with people in the village or even outside there. You meet anybody anywhere, you tell them about something, they're still going to ask, mheshimiwa unatuacha namna gani? Whether you have brought development or not. So the question that has been for Kenyans is that elections and our leadership are only from self-serving, and that's the why whoever is elected is self-serving, because the person who elected them is still self-serving. And so the question of how to revolutionize this and then come around to the question of issues, then it should be a universal thing. Because remember, the people that we have elected, whether we are going to elect young people or old people or not, if we are going to base it on the same morals of extortion that has been, then nothing is going to change.
My point exactly.
Then nothing is going to change. So once we are moving now towards this conversation, then we need to get real on what we actually need to do.
And yet
reject
the
question of money, that do not ask for money upfront. Because if you ask for money upfront, then tumemalizana na wewe. Nikisha ingia pale, once you have entered into the position, we are already done. Because I spent all this money to get elected. Then do not expect. That's the question that people do not understand. But once we eliminate the question of money, then we can be able to come on the table. Then we ask,
can it be eliminated?
Can it be eliminated?
It can. If we have the same revolution, remember last year when people got into parliament, and I'm not saying that that it was a good thing to keep going to parliament. The young people went into parliament. They said one thing that was very profound, that we are the people who put you there, and we are the people who can get you out. There was no money that was changing hands when those young people were doing that. Why not use the same vigor, the same energy to go to the polls and select leaders without the need for money? Because remember, if we can come up with a movement, and I want to urge young people across the country, whoever is listening, come 2027, do not accept money from any politician. And then you are going to have the voice to demand whatever development that you need in this country.
It does make sense. It is a call. It's a tough one. But I think in being able to receive or realize certain results, that you have to do make some tough action.
These are the drastic questions, the drastic actions that must be taken.
Do you think the ground is ready? Do you think the ground, and I'm talking about the Kenyans that we talk about, you said that they are the ones who still need something when you're coming to, is the ground ready for Stephen Munanya? Is the ground ready to vote for somebody who is 30 years younger than the folks who are right now in
I
those
think
circles?
it is.
Okay.
To some extent, yes. But it also needs to be developed further. The reason why I'm saying that is because you look at the last elections, we have so many young people who are elected as members of county assemblies, who some did not even have a single coin. They were just pushed across with a bicycle, others on mkokoteni, by Kenyans who needed a certain kind of leader in a certain place. They did not have the vehicles. They were given by people. The money, the money to move around, they were given by people. Money for posters, people volunteered to be able to do that, and they are there as young leaders. To some extent, and in some quarters, this has happened. So what we need to do is to ensure that as we are moving on to 2027, 2032, as we move forward, if we need this country to move in the right direction, we should eliminate the money that flows from the rich during elections being poured for the purpose of bribing, for the purpose of influencing elections, and for the purpose of ensuring that the masses are placated when they are electing leaders. Yeah.
Very important points. And I mean, look, there is a lot of work to be done, just like you're saying. And I think that there are very many opportunities for alternate leadership in young people to actually come in and, join this, I want to call it bandwagon, but, to join this thing, because it's necessary to see that alternate leadership take place. Thank you very much for being in the room this morning. In 10 seconds, why do you think that the current governor chose you to be his running mate?
In 10 seconds.
Yes.
Okay, 5 then.
One, I would want to think that the circumstances of me becoming a deputy weren't as normal as everybody else. Because I came in at a time where my governor was besieged by some political issues so that he cannot be able to run, so that they eliminated his deputy. So he was looking for a well-educated young person who had a political mind to be able to get into that position. I was there from Katanga constituency with a master's degree, a former assistant county commissioner, and I was up for the task.
There you go. Well, I guess that's the answer. And I think that's what a lot of other people who say, okay, so how do I get there? Those are the answers, and that's right there where we are. Stephen Munanya is the Deputy Governor of Murang'a County. He's been our guest this hour. Thank you very much for being here with us. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Gear up for success with Naivas. From